You don't belong in first class, Sarah snapped,
I have 2 tickets
ripping
for you
a
to
perfectly
New York.
valid boarding pass
thank
straight
you.
down the middle like it was trash. Her eyes locked on a man dressed in a plain black t-shirt and jeans, unaware that in less than 30 minutes, he would fire her in front of a full cabin of stunned passengers. That man wasn't just any passenger. He was David Chen, CEO, billionaire, and 25% owner of the airline she just humiliated. The flight was scheduled to leave Chicago for Los Angeles at 6:23 p.m. David walked on calm, collected, unnoticed. He was investigating his own airline after online reviews complained about staff treating passengers based on appearance. So David dressed down, no Rolex, no suit, just jeans and a black tee. First class seat 2A, paid in full. When he approached his seat, Sarah Harris, flight attendant from Ohio, looked him up and down. "Sir, I think you're in the wrong cabin," she said flatly. David showed his boarding pass. Sarah didn't glance at it. "That seat's been reassigned," she added, motioning toward economy. Jake Foster, another flight attendant from Texas, walked up chuckling. "Yeah, man, economy is more your style." David raised an eyebrow but kept cool. "This says 2A, first class." He handed over his boarding pass and ID. Sarah barely looked. "This has to be fake. We've seen this before." Captain Robert Pierce walked down from the cockpit. "Sir, if you don't comply, we'll have to remove you. We have VIP guests who need that seat." Richard and Laura Bennett, a wealthy white couple, stepped forward with champagne flutes. "Is this going to be a problem?" Sarah replied, "We're handling it." The Bennetts smiled, the seat reassignment clearly arranged ahead of time. David stayed seated. "I'm not moving." Linda Walsh, security officer, stepped in. "Sir, either vacate the seat or you'll be escorted off." Amy Chen, a 22-year-old trainee flight attendant, looked stunned. "Actually, I think his ticket's real. I saw it scan green." Sarah snapped. "Stay out of this, Amy." Amy stepped back, tapping her phone's audio recorder and slipping it into her pocket. In row 4, Emma Larson from Minnesota pulled out her phone and hit record. "This is discrimination." Her seatmate, Mike Grant from Florida, started filming too. "This is going to blow up." Sarah, irritated, grabbed David's boarding pass and tore it. "You're going to economy or you're off." David pulled out his platinum business card. Sarah laughed. "You people carry fake cards now?" David called his executive assistant. "Rachel, log this. Contact the board." Rachel answered instantly. "Already on it. Sending alerts now." The Bennetts stepped into seat 2A like royalty. Emma shook her head, uploading her video with #Horizon Shock. Within seconds, views ticked upward. In the galley, Amy overheard Sarah and Jake whispering, "Dude really thought he was flying first class." Jake laughed. He probably printed that boarding pass at home. Amy pressed record again, looking sick. Daniel walked up. Last warning. David stood to face them. "You're making a mistake. You have no idea who I am." Sarah rolled her eyes. "You're nobody. Economy's that way." Emma stood up. "He's got a valid ticket." Mike joined her. "You can't take someone's seat because of what they look like." Linda stepped forward. "Sir, move now." David didn't budge. "You're going to regret this." Amy reappeared, cheeks flushed. "Captain, he belongs here." Daniel waved her off. "Trainees don't speak during escalation." Sarah opened her iPad and deleted David's name from the seating log. No record of Chen ever booking 2A. Amy overheard it all, gripping her phone. David sat back down. "You're ruining this company." Sarah scoffed. "It's not your company." David's jaw tightened. "Want to bet?" Daniel's voice cut through the cabin. "Sir, this is your final notice." David didn't flinch. Sarah muttered, He's a scammer. Brian added, policy is policy. Linda stepped forward. Don't make this harder. You don't want to end up on a no-fly list. Amy looked over, but his scan was green. David pulled out his phone. Rachel, they're making their final move. Rachel replied, the board is live. All 3 members are online and ready. Emma stood filming. This is wrong. The man hasn't raised his voice once. Mike nodded. Y'all keep saying policy but won't look at his ID. Daniel turned toward passengers. This passenger is interfering with pre-flight protocols. Emma wasn't having it. He showed you everything. You tore up his ticket and lied. Sarah shouted, there is no record of David Chen in seat 2A. Amy's fingers trembled. She had recorded Sarah and Jake mocking David again. The seating log showed a suspicious blank where David's name had been. The log was altered. 1 row back, a teenager whispered, he's not doing anything wrong. His mom nodded, pulling out her phone, too. David thought about 20 years earlier, fresh out of grad school, applying at a regional airline. He showed up professionally but got rejected. Not the image we're looking for. That phrase stuck with him for decades. That rejection became fuel for every deal until he held 25% of Horizon Airlines. Rachel's voice came through sharp. James says it's time. You are cleared to act. Amy stepped forward. Captain, I recorded what Sarah and Jake said. Daniel turned red. That's a violation of crew protocol. Amy didn't back down. So is what they did. Sarah laughed, shaken. No one's going to believe a trainee. Emma raised her phone. I do. Mike added. Same here. Someone from the back yelled, us too. Daniel raised his voice. This is escalating, Beck. Cause of 1 non-compliant passenger. Linda stepped forward aggressively. Sir, final warning. David locked eyes with her. I suggest you wait about 5 more minutes because by then you'll be getting a call from someone who signs your paychecks. Amy stepped into the aisle. This is wrong. His ticket scanned green. Sarah rolled her eyes. He's probably scamming the system. David turned to Sarah slowly. You're talking to someone who's flown this airline longer than you've worked here. Mike said, loud and clear, you're going to lose your jobs over this. Sarah panicked, whispering to Jake, do you think he's somebody? Jake glanced at David's face. He looks familiar. Carter. Wait. No. It can't be. Rachel's voice came firmer. They know who you are. The board's ready. David's lips curved into a calm smile. Let's give them that move, then. Amy stepped forward with her phone raised. I have everything recorded, and I'll send it to the board if you try to remove him. Sarah froze. Jake stepped back. Daniel cursed under his breath. David stood slowly. Your bias ends here. Passengers began standing with him. Daniel's voice cracked through the intercom. Due to a disruption in first class, we are removing a non-compliant individual. Linda reached for David's arm. Sir, stand up now. David turned his head slowly. You put your hands on me, you'll answer to a boardroom, not a holding cell. She froze. Emma's video hit 95,000 views. Mike's crossed 100K. Amy stepped into the aisle, voice shaking but firm. Captain, I have proof. I heard Sarah say there was no record after she deleted it herself. Sarah spun around. That's a lie. Amy didn't flinch. You said it. I recorded it. Mike yelled, so is tearing up someone's ticket and lying about it. Passengers stood up, creating a wall of resistance. David leaned back. Rachel, tell James, Sarah, and Robert the situation is escalated. Rachel came back sharp. I've looped in the board. Legal is reviewing the audio and video. David's eyes met Linda's. If you remove me now, you remove your future with this airline. Daniel stepped in. You can't speak to my team that way. I'm speaking to them like someone who signs their payroll checks, David said flatly. Sarah blinked. Wait, what? Jake's face turned gray. You're joking. David said nothing more, letting uncertainty hang in the air. Amy hit play on her phone. The voice memo echoed Sarah saying, "Not in those jeans." Jake laughing about fake tickets, and Sarah muttering, "Delete it. Chen's name doesn't belong in first class anyway." Passengers gasped. Mike said loudly, "That's all the proof you need." Sarah spun around, yelling, "She edited that!" But no one was listening anymore. Daniel's eyes darted between his crew and the crowd. "Everyone sit down." The passengers weren't budging. "You're not removing anyone," Mike said. Linda looked at Daniel. "This isn't going how it's supposed to." Sarah was sweating, visibly shaken. "Maybe we misread the situation." David finally stood, not to leave, but to face them. "No, you read it exactly how you wanted. You saw a black man in jeans and decided I didn't belong. You ripped up my ticket. You lied about my ID. You forged the log. All of it for optics." Sarah opened her mouth, but nothing came out. An older passenger said, "This happened to my son. Different city, same playbook." Amy stepped beside David. "He's telling the truth. I back him 100%. David's phone buzzed. Rachel's voice. "They're ready." He looked at Sarah, then Jake, then Daniel. "You'll want to sit down. You're about to be very unemployed." Sarah stepped back. Wait. Jake looked like he wanted to melt. Daniel tried gathering authority. "This is a misunderstanding." David stared him down. "You're going to wish it was." Emma's phone buzzed. "My video just hit 100,000 views." The Bennetts, silent until now, finally spoke. Richard cleared his throat. "We didn't ask for this." David turned toward them. "But you didn't stop it either." Daniel clenched his jaw, turning to Sarah, Jake, and Linda. "Remove him now." Sarah stormed down the aisle with Jake and Linda stepping forward. "Sir, we're done playing games," Linda ordered. David looked down at his phone and tapped once. "Rachel, they're making their final move." Rachel's voice rang clear. "The board is live. They've reviewed everything. They're ready." David looked up as Linda reached for him. "Don't. You're a single decision away from either saving your job or losing it forever." Linda's hand froze in the air. Passengers were no longer just filming. They were speaking out, forming a blockade between David and the crew. "You're not taking him anywhere," Emma declared. Mike stood beside her. "You tore up his boarding pass. You mocked him. Now you want to throw him off?" Sarah shouted back, "Everyone stay seated or you'll be removed too." But no one sat. More passengers stood, creating a wall of resistance. Linda whispered to Daniel, "This doesn't feel right anymore." Daniel hissed, "Just follow orders." But she didn't move. Amy stepped forward, voice cracking but gaining strength. "I heard Sarah and Jake in the galley. They joked about how David didn't belong here." Sarah wheeled around, red-faced. "You're a trainee. You don't know protocol." Amy shook her head. "I know right from wrong." Emma yelled, "We've all heard the audio." Mike raised his phone. "My video just hit 200,000 views. Hamart Horizon Shock is trending." Rachel's voice came through again, firm and decisive. "James says it's time. You are cleared to act." David stepped forward, facing Sarah, Jake, Daniel, and Linda. But he turned first to the passengers. "Thank you. Not just for filming, but for standing up." Then to Amy. "You showed more integrity in one day than some do in their whole career." Sarah took a step back, sensing the shift. "Look, maybe we misjudged." "You didn't misjudge," David interrupted sharply. "You chose. You chose to ignore my ID. You chose to tear up my boarding pass. You chose to erase my name from the log." Daniel tried stepping in. Sir, we can escalate this to federal security. You won't need to, David said, because I am David Chen, CEO and 25% shareholder of Horizon Airlines, and as of this moment, the board is aware of every second of this incident. The air went completely still. Sarah's mouth dropped open. Jake stuttered, "You're lying." David didn't flinch. "Rachel, patching James on speaker." A calm, authoritative voice filled the cabin. "This is James Thompson, Horizon board member. We've received full recordings. This situation is being handled internally. Any employee who attempts to interfere further will be terminated." Linda staggered back. Jake looked sick. Daniel whispered, "Oh my God." Emma gasped, "I knew it." Mike laughed, stunned. "That's the CEO." Sarah's voice trembled. "David, I didn't know." David turned his gaze toward her, calm and cold. "That was the point. You didn't see me. You saw your version of me and decided I didn't deserve to sit in a seat I paid for on a plane I partly own." He turned to Linda. "You can still fix this, but you've got to make it now." Linda swallowed hard, then stepped back. "I'm not touching him. I want no part of this." Passengers clapped quietly. David lifted his phone. "Rachel, tell the board we'll be proceeding with crew terminations. Replacement crew should be ready in 10. Rachel replied, "Confirmed." Sarah whispered, "Please, David. This was a mistake." "No," David replied coolly. "This was a pattern. And now that pattern ends." Daniel's voice cracked through the intercom. "Attention passengers. Due to a disruption, we are removing a non-compliant individual." Linda reached for David's arm. "Sir, stand up now." David turned slowly. "You put your hands on me, you'll answer to a boardroom, not a holding cell." She froze. Emma's phone hit 95,000 views. Mike's crossed 100K. Amy stepped into the aisle. "Captain, I have proof. I heard Sarah say there was no record after she deleted it herself." Sarah spun around. "That's a lie." Amy held firm. "I recorded it." Mike yelled, "So is tearing up someone's ticket." Passengers formed a human blockade. "Don't touch him. We're all watching." David remained seated, phone in hand. "Rachel, tell James, Sarah, and Robert the situation's escalated." Rachel's voice came back sharp. "Board is in emergency session. Legal is reviewing everything." David's eyes met Linda's. "If you remove me now, you remove your future with this airline." Daniel tried asserting authority. "You can't speak to my team that way." "I'm speaking to them like someone who signs their payroll checks," David said flatly. Sarah blinked. "Wait, what?" David pulled out his phone and called Rachel. "Tell them Amy has audio." Amy hit play. The voice memo echoed Sarah saying, "Not in those jeans." Jake laughing about fake tickets, and Sarah muttering, "Delete it. Chen's name doesn't belong in first class." Passengers gasped. Mike said, "That's all the proof you need." Sarah spun around yelling, "She edited that!" No one was listening. An older passenger said, "This happened to my son. Same playbook." Amy stepped beside David. "He's telling the truth." David's phone buzzed. "Rachel." "They're ready." He looked at Sarah, Jake, then Daniel. "You're about to be very unemployed." Sarah stepped back. Wait. Daniel tried gathering control. "This is a misunderstanding." David stared him down. "You're going to wish it was." Linda stepped forward aggressively. "Sir, final warning." David looked down at his phone and tapped once. "Rachel, they're making their final move." Rachel's voice rang clear. "The board is live. They're ready." Just as Linda reached for him, David said, "Don't. You're one decision away from saving or losing your job forever." Linda's hand froze. Passengers weren't just filming anymore, they were blocking the crew. "You're not taking him anywhere," Emma declared. Sarah shouted, "Everyone stay seated or you'll be removed too." But more passengers stood, creating a wall of resistance. Amy stepped forward. "I heard Sarah and Jake mock David in the galley." Sarah red-faced. "You don't know protocol." Amy, "I know right from wrong." Emma, "We've all heard the audio." Mike, "My video hit 200K. Had horizon shock is trending." Rachel's voice came decisive. "James says it's time. You are cleared to act." David stepped forward, facing the crew. He turned first to passengers. "Thank you for standing up." To Amy, "You showed more integrity than some do in their whole career." Sarah sensed the shift. "Maybe we misjudged." "You didn't misjudge," David interrupted. "You chose to ignore my ID, tear up my boarding pass, erase my name from the log." Daniel, "We can escalate to federal security." "You won't need to," David said, "because I am David Chen, CEO and 25% shareholder of Horizon Airlines." Complete silence. Sarah's mouth dropped. Jake stuttered, "You're lying." Rachel, patching James on speaker. A calm voice filled the cabin. "This is James Thompson, board member. We've received full recordings. Any employee interfering further will be terminated." Linda staggered back. Jake looked sick. Daniel whispered, "Oh, God." Emma gasped, "I knew it!" Mike, "That's the CEO." Sarah's voice trembled. "David, I didn't know." David turned his gaze cold. "That was the point. You saw your version of me and decided I didn't deserve a seat I paid for on a plane I partly own." To Linda, "You can fix this, but decide now." Linda stepped back. "I'm not touching him. I'm done." Passengers clapped. David, "Rachel, proceeding with terminations. Replacement crew in 10. Sarah whispered, "Please, this was a mistake." "No, Davy," I'd replied. "This was a pattern, and now it ends." Minutes later, the fired crew stood in the terminal, stripped of titles. David stepped off briefly, flanked by security. Sarah stood rigid, mascara streaking. "I hadn't known." "You knew what you were doing," David said. "You didn't need to know who I was. You just needed to treat me like a human being who paid for a seat." Security escorted them toward the exit. Sarah looked back hollow. Jake and Daniel didn't. David turned to Linda, who stood by the wall. "You gave me a choice," she said softly, "and I almost blew it." David nodded. "We've all stood on the wrong side. What matters is what we do next." Linda straightened. "I'll do better." "Then you'll start retraining next week. You'll shadow Amy." Linda blinked, surprised. "Amy?" David smiled. "She just got promoted." Amy stood by the door in disbelief, badge freshly issued, official wings in hand. David approached her. "You kept your head when they told you to stay quiet, but you spoke anyway. That takes courage." "I just couldn't watch it happen," she stammered. "And now, you'll help lead change." Rachel's voice returned. "Brian just admitted this isn't the first time. He and Sarah covered up 3 prior complaints, all minority passengers, records tampered." David's jaw tensed. "This is bigger than bias. This is systematic deception." Rachel continued. "David Lee ordered a full audit. Sarah's putting out a public statement. James wants to brief the DOJ by morning." David turned toward the window. "Then let's clean house from the top down." He walked back where passengers waited patiently. Many applauded softly. One woman stood. "You didn't have to come yourself, but you did." David gave a humble nod. "That's what leadership is. Not hiding behind statements, but showing up in hard moments." Rachel reported, "New crew briefed. Flight can resume in 15." David looked around. Make sure every affected passenger gets a direct apology, full refund, and lifetime platinum status. Rachel. Already processing. And Amy, set her up with mentorship under our DEI lead. Amy's eyes went wide. Seriously? Seriously? This company needs more of you. To Linda, you'll shadow her. Learn from the voice you tried to ignore. Linda nodded. I will. Rachel. Hashtag Horizon Shock crossed 750,000 views. Media's asking for statements. Let them watch, he said. We're not going viral. We're going accountable. The wheels of Flight 227 finally lifted off at 8:12 p.m., nearly 2 hours behind schedule. But not a single complaint was heard. The cabin was strangely calm, as if everyone knew they were part of something bigger. David sat quietly in seat 2A, this time unchallenged. Amy wore her full wings, moving with purpose, treating each guest like a personal mission. Emma and Mike were still on their phones. Emma whispered, You've changed more than just this flight. Mike added, Your name's everywhere. Videos hit 1 million. David smiled faintly. It was never about going viral. It was about being visible. Not as a CEO, but as a human being who wanted to be treated fairly. A couple tapped David's shoulder. We wanted to thank you. My nephew went through something like this last year. No one listened. You made it count. David nodded. Tell him things are changing. The man added, Because of you. David shook his head. Because people finally stopped letting silence speak for them. The new pilot came on the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Reyes. We are cruising at 32,000 feet. On behalf of the new crew and Horizon Airlines, we thank Mr. Chen for personally restoring that trust. Soft clapping filled the cabin. David closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. This wasn't just about one flight. It was about years of being second-guessed, overlooked. It was about the job he never got at 25 because of optics. It was about the boy from Chicago's South Side who once sat in the back and dreamed of owning the whole fleet. Rachel's voice chimed gently. All board directives in motion. Public statement scheduled for morning. Legal preparing ethics reviews for every base. David nodded. Good. Let it start now. Rachel added, Media wants your quote. David paused, then replied, Tell them I didn't come to make noise. I came to make change. Someone murmured, This flight should be in a movie. Another said, It should be policy. David looked to Amy, to Linda, to the passengers who stood with him. This is what legacy feels like. Not a plaque, but a culture reset born mid-air. A few months from now, new policy would roll out across Horizon's 48 bases. Zero tolerance for discrimination, mandatory bias training, direct reporting to the board. Amy would be regional training lead. Linda would be her co-lead after retraining. And David would quietly ensure that every cabin at 30,000 feet became a place where no one had to justify their right to be there. The clouds outside thinned, revealing stars above the flight path. Inside 2A, David Chen sat still, watching the sky, not chasing justice anymore, but flying with it.